Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
It's lights out and away we go.
Alberto's got away beautifully at the start of the great race.
Who's that got off?
Leclerc.
Charles Leclerc.
Welcome to Negative Camber, the Motorsport Show, brought to you by ProKarts Race Centre.
Far enough back, he's going to make the lunge down the inside.
The ultimate pit stop,
The safety car is coming in.
fueling your passion for motorsport.
With an emotional moment that means everything.
All of the latest results, analysis, and interviews.
Roar the drivers on to the final lap of this race.
I'm Jamie Lemura, motorsport enthusiast, historian, and media presenter.
And I'm Lee Harrison, motorsport professional, Sprint Master Karts race driver, and Formula One alumni.
Welcome to Negative Camber, the Motorsport Show, and we're here in the media room of the Adelaide 500, and I'm really honoured and excited to have the godfather of this show, I affectionately call it that, Aaron Noonan from V8 Sleuth. As you guys know, he's probably the guy that I aspire to be from the motorsport historian stuff. I've bought plenty of content from him, helped make him a millionaire. But we all have a mutual shared passion, and that's motorsport and V8 supercars. So, basically, I'll introduce you to Aaron. Noons, how are you?
I'm very good, and that's probably the best intro I've ever had. So I will look up your name in our system, though, because I reckon we could probably do you a discount for whatever you buy next. So it's got to be over $200.
As long as you can still keep food on the table.
Yeah, exactly. The fourth mansion needs a resto, so all the help you can give is appreciated.
If I had to show my stash to my wife about some of the stuff that's come out of V8 Sleuth, I'd be very much finding the bag out the front door. But
We're moving into Noon's third mansion.
Well, I'd be happy with that.
It's available. It's for rent.
All I ask is some cred for your next book, but from our discussion that we've had.
It's the cheapest rent I've ever charged. How good's that? How good's this?
Mate, it's I guess for me, I'm always fascinated to find out what got you down this path of being in supercars media, AN1 media. Where did it all start? What inspired you, and what was the path?
I think like a lot of these things, there's no grand plan. You just go into it being interested, enthused, and want to get among things, which I guess is same with you guys. Like you find a way in, and I got a way in through Motorsport News magazine. So that's a long time ago. That's 1997. Wow. So that's aging me. I wrote a letter. Saying, "Oh, hi, my name's Aaron, and I'd like to be a motor racing journalist." And back in the time when there was these things called magazines that did news, it's changed a little now, and really it's all just gone from there. But the sleuth thing, the AN1 media thing, that sort of came later. But that couldn't have happened without the other stuff before it, because it gave me a platform. So whether it was the television, primarily it was the television, some other things I did along the way, it got people to know who I was, and then I was able to build upon that. So it was, again, just following. I like the old cars. I like to know which one was what, where, why, and how. And I remember there was a really prominent journalist at the time who I'm friends with, so it's okay, but I won't name him because he'll get the sads. He said, "Why do you track all this crap? No one cares." And then 20, 25 years later, he's the same one asking me which was the car he drove at X race, X year. And I like to remind him of that quite regularly. So one man's trash is kind of another man's treasure in a way too. So, no great plan. Just find something that you like doing, and then just keep doing it, and hopefully things work out. So, yeah.
What about before that? Like, where did the interest in motorsport come from for you to write that letter in the first place?
I don't have a family who were in it, like as in competing or working within it. But my dad's a fan, and that's what I was. And it came from him. It's all his fault, basically. So we'd go to Sandown. I grew up in Ballarat, so Sandown was kind of the one race a year that we could go to, and that was the 500, not the touring car round, which I'd rather go to the 500 than the touring car round because it went for longer. Makes sense, doesn't it? Yep. So that's kind of where that all started, and then it gets to a point when you're at school and they say, "Oh, what do you want to do?" You go, "I don't want to get a real job. Like, that doesn't sound like fun at all." And I liked writing, and I did all the writing subjects. So it sort of made sense to go, well, I like writing, so let's do writing. And that led to, I did a little bit of stuff in community radio in Ballarat through the car club and people you got to know there, and did a bit of stuff for the local car club magazine. And yeah, like it's just all little stuff that you get a little opportunity and you get another little opportunity, and you know the community radio show became a commercial radio show in Ballarat, and then so on, and you know away it goes.
Motorsport's such a niche. Was there someone that was doing journalistic work in motorsport that you were aspiring to be, same as sort of Jamie looking up to you, so to speak, or was it sort of like you saw an opportunity in the market that there was room for growth in that market?
I don't think I probably had any one person who I wanted to be like, or I'm going to do what they do. But once I got to Motorsport News, like that group of guys and girls was awesome. Yeah. And there's grounding that came there of how to do things and how to deal with people and how to approach situations that I still use it today. Like it's still exactly the same. So, by the way, there's a Supercars media press conference, team principal conference about to start here shortly. So that's why all the team owners are walking in, looking at us, going, "What are you doing? What are you blokes doing? Are you doing your own media conference here?" I don't know.
I've just seen all the big heads.
But don't worry about them. This is more important, clearly.
Yeah, clearly.
I've got my wet back to him, so that's hopefully.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess so. You get into Motorsport News, and what was your first main article where your name?
I remember. Yeah, I remember that. I actually didn't work there. I was just freelancing after I wrote a letter saying, "Oh, can you please give me a gig?" And I did Formula Fords at Calder 97. So the first, and I've told the story a bit over the journey, but the first bloke I met was Garth Tander, the second bloke Mark Sambrose, and third bloke Todd Kelly. So that's sort of, they've all gone on to do a bit over the journey. So, yeah, but I was too young to drive. So, Dad, do you want to go to Calder for free? Free tickets? Sure, you're driving. Okay, done. So that's kind of what got in the door. That led to working in their office in my school holidays, work experience, and then, finished year 12 and straight down the highway to Melbourne and picked up a gig there. And, but those guys are guys. We had a dinner recently, a whole bunch of us from those days, and, a lot of the things that I learnt then I still use to this day. I probably don't stop and think about it until you guys ask me about that stuff. But great grounding. I think that was the best grounding I could have got, pretty much.
What led to obviously stints at Channel 7, 7 Magic Moments in Motorsport. I've got pretty much every Bathurst on that.
Say, have you got all of them?
Pretty much all of them, and now I've got to start the V8 Supercar era now too. So, there's so much content there. But was that a project that you ran through 7, or was that something that was?
No, that was actually through Chevron, Sydney-based company that made the Great Race Book for many years. You guys will know them well, but because I'd done stuff with 7 and V8 Extra and all the stuff, I had a pretty good idea of what was in the archives. And I could never understand why they kept recycling the same vision and just rebranding it every time. So I thought there's so much more stuff there that they haven't got to use. And I spoke to the guys at Chevron, Ray Berghaus, John Kittle, known them for years since I was a kid, and sort of said, hey, there's actually more here. How about we get together and we do stuff? And this is 2012, so DVDs are still a thing. Like, they've died right off now. But it was perfect timing. We've released, I don't know, you have to look at your shelf to know how many, but 60, 70, 80, I don't know, but hours and hours of stuff that otherwise would have never been seen. Yeah, it would have been tucked away. So I like digging at stuff that people haven't. I figure if I haven't seen it, fair chance most people haven't seen it. So I like doing that sort of stuff that, things that sit in vaults and archives. That's where it's supposed to be kept, but you've got to get it out of it. It's like having a really nice car. Yep. It's nice to have it, and it's cool to just have it and sit and look at it. But unless you give it a run every now and then and get it out, what's the point? Same sort of thing.
Yeah. We're heading into the 500, obviously, this weekend, championship decider. I listened to your podcast before, but on the drive-in, and I got some 2017 vibes, even though Brody's got the advantage at the moment.
The vibes of it's over, but it's not over.
Yeah. Especially if it rains.
Yeah, because that's another element. That's. I'm sure Brody's not keen on that right now as we talk, but. I've got to say that there's a bit to it.
Yeah.
It's not done. There's a lot of people who are going, he'll have it done. Easy. 131 up with 300 on the table. Probability is he's far more. But he has a bad Saturday, Shane has a good Saturday. We're neck and neck game on for Sunday, which I guess if you're a broadcaster, it's ideal. If you're Channel 7 or Fox Sports or SEN or whoever broadcasting it, you kind of want it to go to the death. So, I can see that. There's a little bit of that feeling around it. But with, I reckon this is a better grand final venue anyway.
Yeah, exactly. We'll end it here for now. We'll come back a little bit later. We've got the V8 Supercar Team Principals press conference on, which I think we'll sit in on. Maybe even stick our microphone there if we're brave enough. And Noons will catch up with him, probably continue this discussion a little bit later on.
I'm around. And let's ask some hard questions and make them squirm. It's the last time you get Tim Edwards too.
You can actually get away with that. I don't have the balls to do that.
That's right. Just smile and wave.
All right.
Follow us on socials, join us on our website, negativecamber.co, and be sure to subscribe to the Negative Camber Club for access to exclusive content, episode previews, and special deals from our amazing partners.
Brace yourself for the Soddy experience at Pro Karts Race Centre, the official South Australian distributor for Soddy karts. Picture this: karting excellence meets global dominance, all on our local tracks. Soddy karts are more than machines, they're powerhouses of victory. From the heart of France to the South Australian circuit, they dominate in all categories. But that's not all. When you race with a Soddy kart, you're backed by on and off-track technical support directly connected to the factory. It's not just karting, it's the Soddy advantage. Get ready to experience world-class performance, unmatched thrill, and victory like never before. Rev up for the Soddy experience, only at Pro Karts Race Centre. Visit prokartsracecentre.com.au or pop in for a chat at 30 Research Road, Paraka. Pro Karts Race Centre, fueling your passion, igniting your potential.
Welcome back to Negative Camber, and we now have just come out of the team manager press conference, and Noons was nice enough to come back and see us, which means that we're good value for him. So, hey, welcome back. Now, we were talking, we skipped a few chapters in your career, so we'll wind it back a little bit. So, you've gone to, obviously, Motorsport News, you've gone to the article. How did you get into TV? Like, what was the, like, to Channel 7 and that sort of thing?
I pestered people. I did a lot of on-track commentary over the years with Formula Ford and Pro Car, and here in Adelaide with the 500 a couple of times, and it's just, again, you talk to people, you get an opportunity. I think the first, remember when Barry Oliver used to win Targa every year with Jim Richards? It was pretty much a fait accompli. One of those years that clashed with a round of the Konica Series at Phillip Island, and Formula Ford was the support category to the Konicas, Super 2 now. And Barry did that, but Barry couldn't do that because he was with Jim in Tassie. So I had covered Formula Ford, got to know people, they got to know me. Hey, you can talk, fill in, sure. And, that sort of stuff just rolls on from there. And I bugged Murray Lomax, who was... he was at Channel 10 previously, but then at Red Max, his own production company, they used to do trackside. Remember the Channel 10 show that showed the support categories? Yep. So I bugged him for a while about trying to sort of get a foot in the door somewhere. And I ended up in Holden Motorsport PR World, so that sort of took me out of the mix a little bit, but I sort of kept connected to it. And then the rights changed, which is perfect, because when they change the rights, they change something. They never just leave it the same. Yep. So, and Rusty and I have joked about this. So Rusty has a contract, Greg Rust, in his drawer to go to Channel 7 from Channel 10, but he never signed it and didn't take up the deal. So that opened the door for me to get the opportunity in 2007 to start with. It wasn't with 7, it was on 7, but it was for Supercars Television, who to this day produced the broadcast. So, but it started a relationship with 7 anyway, that then grew into doing some more for 7 directly a bit later on, filling in for Matty White, calling V8s, calling the IndyCar race to the Gold Coast, all sorts of bits and pieces. So, yeah, but I probably haven't told it enough that the first bit of actual television I did, because I'd bugged Murray so much, he got sick of me. And these were in the days where the Konica rounds were standalone. They weren't at the main game, or very rarely. And we would be away at Winton or Wakefield Park or Phillip Island or Queensland Raceway or Mallala even out here. And so I got to know him more, and there was a young bloke called Grant Denyer who was the host. So been friends with Grant for a long time from those early days. And, you know, we were young and stupid and dumb and had lots of fun, and occasionally we did some car racing as well. So one day Murray said, well, I've got a gig, and it was to commentate the Commodore Cup series. And they'd spent all year filming all the races, but the series didn't have enough budget to make shows for television. So he agreed to film it during the year, keep the vision, cut it up at the end of the year, and then record like 5 or 6 shows all at once in one day, and they were going to just get given to Fox Sports, just so they would be somewhere. So he went, do you want to do it? Sure. I've got a DVD somewhere at home. It'll be just horrendous if you ever see it or hear it.
Maybe we need the V8 sleuth to sleuth himself.
I might not sleuth myself. That might stay stuck away.
That'll be on the extra Facebook page.
If it's going anywhere, I'm going to get clicks and views out of it. It's got to get something out of it. But the really funny thing is, and people don't believe me, but it's true, that my co-commentator for those shows, we did them all in one day in a studio in Melbourne. Like, it was the longest day ever. 6 shows, 7 shows, whatever. My brain was mush by the end of it. But my co-commentator was actually Andrew McInnes, who used to race Commodore Cup. He's been around racing a long time. But he was in the races. So Murray said, well, we can't have you commentate a race that you're in. You know, that looks a bit sus. So he got renamed, I think, Andrew Bailey, and had a nom de plume for the day. And forever I've had people in Commodore Cup ask me, who's that Andrew Bailey bloke you did that show with? And I'm like, I don't know, not sure. Just some bloke they just told me to talk with, and away it went. So, yeah.
Interesting to know that you were PR manager for Holden Motorsport. That would have been really interesting, and there'd be some stories that come out of that, no doubt.
Yeah, I wasn't doing it for very long. 2004, mid-04. I started halfway through the year until the end of 06 because the television opportunity came up, so I bailed, which is probably just as well because I went in to see Tim Pemberton, Plastic, who was the very long time Holden Motorsport PR guy who passed away recently, or not recently, but in the more recent past. But I walked into him and said, mate, I'm going to leave. I just want to give you as much of a heads up. I think it was just pre-Christmas 06. And if you ever had heard or seen Plastic over the years, he used to speak like this. So I walked in there thinking, oh shit, this is not going well. Like, he's going to not be happy with this. And he goes, oh, thank Christ. And I go, that went very differently. He goes, oh, good. Because I've just had a budget cut from Holden. I was going to have to sack one of you 2 blokes in that other room, so you've just made my decision for me. The other bloke can stay. So, you know, I just did my bit for future employment of other people. But, yeah, but I think there's probably 2 things that stand out. Kmart, 2004. So I got basically Tim Pemberton's business was engaged by Holden to manage the motorsport public relations and media. Yep. Some teams had their own people, but basically if you didn't have your own person, they looked after you as a Holden team, which Holden always did really well. Ford always sucked at that stuff of being united and across them all. Yeah, they still fought like cats and dogs internally, but it was much better put together than Ford did. But Gerald McDormand, who had been doing Kmart, he left to go to America to do drag racing stuff with the Cowans. So opportunity opened up. Plastic had seen what I did at Carrera Cup the previous year and then went, all right, hey, do you want a gig? Sure. So I got Kmart racing, and that's the year they won Bathurst for the second time with the Kmart Spider-Man car. Yep. So that was cool. A Bathurst win. You know, I didn't drive the car, I didn't build the car, but that's as close as I'm probably going to get to one. Yeah. Which was awesome because I've got Murph's race-winning suit and not helmet, cap, the Dunlop podium cap. So he was kind enough to. He was doing an auction of a bunch of his memorabilia for charity in 10 years ago, something like that. And I managed to put my money down on the table before he opened up to anyone else, which was very kind of him. But so that's clearly a standout. But it's Brock's death. You know, it's not the positive story that you probably want, but in terms of the most memorable, the deepest impact, Yeah, that's pretty hard to beat. So, yeah, when you've got the family inviting you to his state funeral as a thanks for what you've done work-wise, yeah, it's a very surreal situation. But,
yeah, Bathurst 06 is memorable for so many reasons. For me, it was obviously the occasion, but I've been a lifelong Mark Scaife fan, fanatic.
And that was a short day for you,
Jesus. Mate, if you saw me at my reaction on the TV...
The PR guy having to write the press release.
It was terrible. Like, I turned, first time in probably ever at Bathurst, I turned the TV off for about 15, just to cool off.
Yeah, well, I was the PR guy for HRT that year because another of the guys from Pemberton's office had been the HRT guy, but he'd left just before the Enduros. Well, actually, he signed a deal to go and work for FPV, so he got marched out of the building that day. So I became the HRT bloke, and at the time, for the start of that race, I was actually in the media centre in the comment with Tony Shebeki, who's here in the media centre today. He was doing SEN radio commentary of the start of the race. So the great irony is I'm now with SEN calling the races in full. Back in those days, they were doing little bits and pieces, the whole race. But so I was sort of co-opted in to talk about the start of the race with him. So the minute that Scaife gets drilled by Jack, I'm headset down. Got to go, mate. Got a commitment here. So yeah, that was obviously shit. That car should have won by a mile that day. It was the fastest car by a country mile. But and then Jim Richards goes and does the extraordinary and crashes 20 laps later, which, you know, Jim Richards crashing at Bathurst is so rare and unheard of. And yeah, the thing's over by lunchtime and the garage is empty and the blokes have all gone in the red shirts. And I can't remember. I still did stuff for some of the other teams, so I think I was off down in Tasmanland or wherever I was after that. But yeah, it's a day, no matter who you are, you'll remember it, whether it's the Lowndes win, it's the Scaife crash with Jack, it's the minute silence on the grid, it's, you know, it's all the stuff that was going on that weekend. You know, Mark Porter's crash as well, that sort of is a prominent element of that whole story. So yeah, there's a doco there one day. There's a bit to unpack in that one, that's for sure.
Yeah, I know Fox have done like a 30-minute doco on 06, but it doesn't seem long enough. Like there's so many elements to that and so many layers to that whole weekend. I mean, you being in the thick of the action, I mean, what was it like to outside of all the key moments? I mean, what were the things like behind the scenes? What was the feeling amongst the teams, the drivers, all that?
Yeah, I think because the Brock thing had happened a month earlier, hadn't it? So that was the next race. We'd already done Sandown. It was the week before, I think, he had his crash. So there was this... I remember being exhausted by it because all the Brock stuff had happened in the aftermath, and at Pemberton's we were highly involved in all of the PR stuff. So everyone rang our office when they were starting to get a whisper out of Perth of something going on. And then that went for days on end. So I remember being... I was actually crook after all, and I didn't know what I had, whether it was just being fried by it all, I don't know. But I remember Bathurst being... Because they did all the stuff where they had all the old cars and it was all about Brock, and for good reason too. But so it had already that to it. And then Mark Porter and David Clark have their crash, and that's clearly horrible. And Mark's in hospital and dies, and David Clark's heavily injured. So then probably the thing that thinking about now, the mass media attention, we just had it. We rarely get it as a sport. More eyes are on Bathurst. Then there's a serious fatal accident. More comes. So we've already been deer in headlights for a month as a sport. So by the time you get through then all the stuff that happens on the Sunday, just, you know, sprawled, like completely cooked. So, and then you had all and that sort of flowed right through, because then you had the Rick Kelly, Craig Lansfield Byland thing, and there was just, there was a lot to unpack in all of that. So looking back on it, I think everyone was pretty fried by it.
Listen to the recent podcast that you had. You talked about the 06 title decider, and you stated you were there. I mean, and it's still to this day, it just conjures up all sorts of emotions. It's 17, 18 years ago now.
Yeah.
Being in the thick of it, I mean, what was it like, and being PR as well?
I remember when, and they don't do it so much anymore, but when championships were decided, that the PR guys and girls would hand out posters with, Holden wins again, or Ambrose wins, or, whoever it was. I remember there was such ill will after that. We were handing out those posters over the pit wall to the punters on the track who'd come over for the podium. And, some of them were, fine, but there were people like taking them and throwing them back at us. Like, the shit had started, and it's still going. It's, I think people had built in their own head it was this conspiracy, and Rick did this, and it was all deliberate, he wiped him out, and seriously, it's just madness. But the fact that we're still talking about it 17 years on probably tells you how much of an impact that it kind of had in the whole thing. So, yeah, there was plenty. And then that went on. That didn't just end on the Sunday afternoon for a while. It was the days afterwards where there was some form of memory tribunal, and it was. And if you put it in the context of the month or two or three that we just had as a sport and a community, I think we're all done by that stage. I think we're all looking forward to Christmas. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
With when you decided to go out on your own and start V8 Sleuth, I mean, when did you feel it was the right time to sort of take that plunge and build the brand?
It'd probably, I didn't really have to go out to do it, because I was already doing it while I was still in Tallyland. So there was a crossover there, and I can't claim to be a genius, but I'll claim it anyway. One of the best things that for the brand, so probably should rewind. So I'd kept all the histories of all the cars. I just liked it. It's nerdy, but I liked it. And then I went, I'm getting asked by people for histories, and can I help? And I like to help people. But then you hang up your phone after the last 45-minute conversation, and you go, if I just added 50 grand to that bloke's car value, probably not smart business, Aaron. You probably need to fix this up a little bit. Yeah. So put it under a banner. V8 Sleuth became the thing. Put it all in a website. People could subscribe to it, and it's it was aimed at people who own the cars or people who were looking to buy the cars, not the general race fan per se. So that was all going on while still in Tally. And the best PR that I got was at Sydney 500 one year in the internal paddock. We did a V8, like a pit lane live type thing, I think, like they did at Bathurst, but we did it in the big pavilion paddock at Sydney. And they put me in a dunk tank with, I can't remember who was throwing the balls at I think it was some female football league or something. I think it was a lingerie football league. I don't know. It's on video somewhere. Anyway, I get dunked, but they put up all these big Dunk the Sleuth, because people were starting to call me that as the sort of, the name that people call me. So it put it on national television. So people started Googling it. So people started going on, and became a thing, Like, I walk around a paddock and people would say, "Go Sleuth, there you go." And they're like, "Oh, yeah, right." Sleuthing, it's a verb. I guess it's a doing word. It's a motor racing thing. So I didn't have to take the plunge, because it was already sort of going in sync. And then the television, this topic we said before, television rights change. So it got me in, and it kind of half got me out the next time around. So when that was over, that was the logical thing to, it's like having all these things on a stove, and then a couple of the jets go out and they're not cooking anymore, so you've got to turn a few of the other ones up. Same thing. So that's exactly what happened.
Idols, I guess, you may have a few. I mean, favourite drivers, who were they? Who are they? I'm assuming Brock's one because of the body of work, but, I mean, you might be surprised. Who is it? Who are they?
As a kid, Brock. Yeah, Brock fan, sure. But being a Brock fan didn't mean I hated Dick Johnson or, insert other names here. Far from it, but he was the guy, so he was the guy. In Formula One, I didn't really have anyone that I was hardcore about. I liked Damon Hill. I sort of liked Williams at that 90s period. I don't know, Damon the underdog, the battler that sort of made good. And I guess I'm more of a fan of the sport. And then naturally you get closer to some people than others over the journey, whether it's people I work with, I love Greg Murphy. I like he's a bit different. I like he says what he thinks. I worked with him for a while. Always had a great relationship with him. Yeah, you ask someone else, he's an asshole. But it's just who you've dealt with over the journey that you just get a bit closer to some people than others. So, it doesn't make me any less of a being able to, what's the right word, be able to dip your lid to everybody else for what they've done, but there's just some guys that you've had closer proximity to. You know the backstory more, you know the grief that they've gone through, you know the good stuff, the bad stuff, and everything in between. So you can kind of appreciate that more than the people you don't know the bits about. So, but I don't really have like a, because I think a lot of people say, Neil Compton must have been your idol as a kid. And like, no, because I wasn't trying to be or looking to be a television guy. And if it was subconsciously and not actively the thing. So it's sort of not right. And because we're both from Ballarat, we'll make that connection. But it's sort of not the case, which is... It's not a very good backstory, is it, when you think about it that way? It doesn't suit the Hollywood script enough, but yeah, that's just how it is.
Well, continue on that trend. What about in PR land? What drivers made your life easy to write stories for and about it or promote them? And which drivers made your life hard to promote and write things about?
I can answer both questions with one bloke, Jason Richards. Okay. Easy because he would do anything and go anywhere. He'd go to the opening of an envelope if you asked him to. Bad because he was always late. And you always had to make sure that you told him something like half an hour before he was going to be there, because he might be then on time. Like, seriously. They say about people being late to their own funeral, that online. Oh, my God. Seriously, I would not have been shocked if he was late to his own funeral. I can say that because I was friends with him and I was there and know it well. The bloke in a super here, by the way, in the background has just had the biggest lose I've ever seen. It slid for about 400 metres on wet grass and finally hit a wall. That's why everyone just went, ooh, oh, in the background.
There's been a couple of us too.
Yeah, we're in a much warmer, better environment sitting here in the media centre on a Adelaide 500. Yeah, they can. You can have your Fat Freddy's Toyota, whatever the hell that is, to yourself. I think it's at least you were smart, not lunatics that decided to walk through the infield Victoria Park in the middle of the rain. Thanks to you. Do you know anybody who might have done that?
Yeah, we did. Oh,
right. I just thought you'd had a shower before you walked through.
When everyone else is sleeping in the media centre, we go out in the rain and get the good content.
Take some shampoo while you're out there. It's 2 for 1.
Exactly.
2 for 1.
Yeah, Jason Richards, his story's amazing, but I don't think I've ever heard anyone say a bad thing about him, like through what I've read or interviewed and that type of thing. And it's a loss for the sport, I reckon, as well.
To everyone else, he's race driver Jason Richards, but to his dad, he was father, his husband, and all that stuff too. So it's more than a sporting tragedy. It's a life tragedy. Like 35, and they go, hey, you've got this, and you're going to DNF soon. Like what? The last thing I was thinking of, but yeah, he was mega. Like we called him Racing Jason because he was fast. Like he needed honing. Some of the shit he tore up. Oh my god. Oh my god. So, I don't know where I think it's Eastern Creek. You probably find it on YouTube or the Supercars YouTube where they put all the old races up. Yep. He spun coming to the green of a shootout lap. He hadn't even started the friggin' lap. Like he was coming out the last corner and had a Barry Crocker, and then of course got going to cross the start line, but of course he's 80 k's slower across the line, so the lap time's no good. But he just didn't know when to hold him and when to fold him, and you can't help but like that about people, because the racing thing was apt because he wasn't if you look back through the results, like he didn't look at the championship results order in the years when he had decent cars, it's not really up there. Like the whole year didn't sort of seem to be his thing. But you pencil him into Bathurst, 05 podium, 07 podium, fourth, 08 podium, 09 podium. And 09, he's all over Garth with a lap or two to go. 5 more laps, and because he's sending it. He's not doing I was close. No. He's winning or binning it, 100%. If he got a sniff, he was in. He was going to throw it up the inside somewhere. But awesome guy, and I think he's been gone for 10 years now.
Yeah.
So. it's interesting how as time fades, the stories get better, which I think is great. I do like that, but I just always want to make sure that people who might not have known anymore, might not have been around in that era, know the deal, know the story, know who kind of was a bit. That's why when Brad Jones's team run the sticker on their car, they had the JR little star sticker that was on all the B pillar of all their cars, but now with the current cars, they don't quite have a B pillar like the other ones, but the sticker's still on there, so that tells you something.
A huge thank you goes out to our podium partner, Prokarts Race Centre, and our incredible sponsors. Your partnership allows us to continue bringing you this show and dive deeper into the world of motorsports. If your business adds value to the motorsport community, get in touch with us to become a Negative Camber partner.
Get ready to ignite your racing passion at Prokarts Race Centre, your ultimate destination for motorsport excellence. Our track isn't just a playground, it's a classroom where 25 years of racing knowledge come to life. Imagine having a team of seasoned experts guiding you from the rookie to the pro. Our driver coaching services aren't just about finding those elusive extra tenths on the track, they're about moulding winners. With hands-on guidance, racing line tips and data analysis, you'll not only experience the thrill of speed, but the satisfaction of victory. Join us and witness the transformation of your racing game as our expertise propels you to the forefront of the competition. Visit prokartsracecentre.com.au or pop in for a chat at 30 Research Road, Paraka. Prokarts Race Centre, fueling your passion, igniting your potential.
You've seen the sport change dramatically over, a sustained period of time. It's no secret that Gen 3's had its fair share of critics this year, rightly or wrongly, whatever. How do you interpret it? I mean, what's been your thoughts of season 23, and where do you see the sport moving forward?
I think it's funny, actually. We were talking about this at work the other day. Here we are in 2023, and because we've got this thing called social media, the amplification of the shit is higher and harder. Back in the day, to have a whinge, you had to put effort in. You had to actually write a letter and send it in somewhere. Now you can just, we've got a phone here, but, we've each got a phone sitting here, we could type away and go nuclear on something in 8 seconds flat. But I think people have rose-coloured glasses, that everything used to be wonderful and amazing and it was better back in the day. So, and I think we talked about it on a recent podcast. So here we are with people saying how this year's a shit show and it's a circus and it's this and it's that. Look, it hasn't been ideal. Like, it has not been ideal. And it's been clouded and it's been all the things we know it's been. But let me put it this way. In 1983, you had a system where the car that kept finishing second scored more points than the winning car, George Fury's Bluebird, Alan Moffat's Mazda. At the final round of the Touring Car Championship, halfway through the television broadcast, they announced on air the changes to the cars for the endurance races with, whatever it was, tyre size or engine mods or whatever, mid-telecast during the race. And you reckon it's a shit show now? Oh my God, seriously. And so that's why I laugh when I hear people about, it was good in the good old days and this and that. And, it was amazing and it was fair and they were real men and all that stuff. And you go, seriously, this sport has been political, it's been parody or homologation based over the years. It's like people have sort of only just realised or thought that this stuff goes on. It's been going on for years. It's not new. We just had a few years where it's sort of not been as much of an issue. So when it flares, away everyone goes again. But it's a massive, and it's so easy. We get whacked because people go, you're just standing up for it because you've got a vested interest. Well, put it this way, like, for the people who might be listening to this, do you have a job? Yeah. Does someone pay you to do your job? Yeah. Would you speak ill of them, or do they pay part of your job? Oh yeah. Or are you in the industry? So why would you crap in your nest? Like, deal with that stuff behind the scenes, and some of it will be public. That's just life. Like, it's the same thing, but so many people don't get it because to them their sport, whether it's footy or cricket or motor racing, it's their hobby. It's their thing away from their job that they want to look at, that is in their own time. Well, this is my job, career, hobby, all wrapped up in one. So, and yeah, you want to hold the sport to account and people to account as well. but there's the line, and we're not footy. Like, we are not as big as some of those other sports, as much as we love to be. We're not going to be. So that's why it is how it is. If it was going to be any different, it would be different. That's just how it is.
Do you have a favourite era to look back on? Like, if someone said to you, you've got one day that you can watch, all the races from one certain year or one certain era, what would that era be?
I'd say whoever that person is that could find me that free day, can you find me who that person is? Because I'd happily pay them to find me some more free days. I think it's mood-based. I don't think it's... So I've got a current thing of looking at... and it's usually linked to work somehow, but I've been doing a bunch of work on Super Touring era. Because yes.
He
nearly fell off his chair.
Yeah, he did. He said the magic words.
The ST. Yeah. Geez. Mainly from a data project I'm working on, but it means I've got to go back through all the races. So looking back at some of those, I actually went, holy shit. They edited it so much better to make it better than it was. When some of those privateer cars running 7th and 8th in the Super Touring rounds were 4 seconds a lap slower around Phillip Island, you go, wow, I never felt that when I watched it on telly until you look at the numbers. I think you'd have a natural tendency to go to the periods and eras of when you're impressionable. So, I'm an 81 model, so late 80s, early to mid 90s is kind of my window before I was in the game. I was on the outside looking in, so it's Mike Raymond broadcasts and Wilco and Crompo and all that stuff, and Group A into Group 5 litre V8s, whatever you want to call it. So that's it's a long period, but it's late 80s to mid 90s is probably the I remember when era, and then the next era is kind of I remember when, but I remember when because I was there. So that's a bit different once you're in the game versus when you're out of the game. So yeah, if I'm dialing up an old racer, I'm probably going a bit mid 90s, early 90s, I reckon. But I can blow the wind on whatever's going. So yeah, I was looking at the old 97 Super Tourers BOC gases. Jamie's nearly fallen off his chair. He's got one leg off the edge.
I've got the review at home on DVD. So.
Yeah. I was looking at all the races I'd recorded on VHS on very shitty reception. Channel 10 in Ballarat that day, not good reception. Very snowy, but viewable. So I'd been saving all this stuff off VHSs before they all went to wreck and ruin. And a lot of the guys who edited and worked on those telecasts, some of them are still racing now. One of them, Michael Heaton, works for Crompo in airtime, so I see him all the time, and I'll wheel out a story. I saw this vision the other day of old mate at the BMW here, and Tony Newman's Peugeot flying off the end of the straight at Calder, and Peter Hill's out of brakes going through the... Do you ever see that?
Yeah, I remember that.
End of the pit straight at Calder, out through the gate. Luckily they kept it open. Security guard on a motorbike going, shit, where's this guy come from?
I still don't believe and can't believe how that there was no contact made with other cars as going down the straight. And
I don't know.
Pulled it up in time as well.
Yeah, I've got no idea. But it's sort of sad that Super Touring era, it's part of the touring car history of Australia, but because it wasn't the popularist category, it sort of gets a bit forgotten. And I like to keep stuff out there that's a bit forgotten. But when you talk to people overseas and through the power of online, it's sort of easy for us to, in Sleuthland, we've got a lot of contacts in Europe and England and stuff, and they're really hungry for Aussie Super Touring content, because if you go Google it online, there's not much, and you're not going to find many photos and stuff. So it's interesting what other people are into, that how could a series here 25, 30 odd years ago have people still so keyed up to want to find and know about it. But
racing was there was a lot of racing that was really good, and lots of memorable moments. So I look back now at all the British Touring Car Championships from the same era.
I can't watch the current British Touring Cars. It doesn't feel like the same series. It's just, I guess it was. I've got the rose-coloured glasses out now too, but it's not the same, is it? It's just not. That era was. It was magical. Nuts. But the budgets were nuts too, just quietly.
The intensity of the racing, like it's. and just with some of the quality of driving that they were able to get away with versus what we see now too, they were loose. They did not. They were loose.
I reckon they'd be well matched by. I watched a little bit of that TCR race from Eastern Creek the other week. Holy crap, those guys were into it.
Yeah.
Like that was a little reminder that we sort of don't have it like that here. And they were diving at everything. Like they were full on up for it. So a bit of a reminder of what that era was like. You know, BTCC and some of those other Super Touring Championships were top-notch stuff. And it was big biscuits because there were like multi-million pound budgets, like insane budgets. And that's not just Britain, because we just saw the British series. But there was the German series, there was an Italian series, there was, you know, other titles where manufacturers were spending truckloads of money. So, it's a cool era, and maybe we should do a book about all the Super Tours one day. Maybe.
How can I help you?
Well, I know I've got one order already. So, are you in? Can you make it two?
I'll pre-order.
All right, that's cool.
That's talking to my genre as well. Like I like the Super Tour stuff.
My fascination with the Volvo S40 gets to a point where I've actually collect memorabilia of it. So I've got team shirts, I've got caps, models. So I've got a model of the Bathurst winner signed by Jim Richards. I've got the British Touring Car Championship. They used to release a book each year, Touring Car World. So I've got those. One autographed by Ricard Rydell. And so I used to watch the BTCC when they had the highlights on Channel 9. And so 98, I used to see the S40 and just the sound, the look, loved it. And so when they came to Australia for Bathurst...
Did you go?
I did.
Yeah,
it was my first Bathurst 1000.
It's first Bathurst 1000 I've been to as a working member of the media.
Yeah. And
I put inverted commas around my statement because I was covering the Schedule S New Zealand Touring Car class within the race.
Yep.
That was my bag. I was expert on the Suzuki Baleno and the Toyota Corolla and the what else is there? 405 Peugeot and some Bimmers. Oh, Jason Richards. He was in one of those.
Yep.
The Honda Integra. Oh yeah. The forgotten cars of the Bathurst 1000. Definitely.
There's another book for you.
Yeah.
But that race is still, to me, probably one of the great 1000s as a pure racing contest. Obviously, between father and son, they weren't separated anymore by 2 seconds, 3 seconds all day.
Yeah.
And then, punctuated by that massive crash going over Skyline between Ingle and I think Tim Harvey it was.
Yeah, it was after the little one of my Schedule S cars, one of those Nissans with Ian Spurl at the wheel, crashed, dropped the drive shaft in the middle of the road, and then Paul Radicic, who was in the second Audi for the weekend, drove over it, and it split the oil cooler and just sprayed oil all the way down the hill, and Tim Harvey and Russell came across it and headbutted the concrete pretty hard, and that was that.
Oh. When you look at the accident now and you see how Tim Harvey hit that tyre barrier, it's just straight bang.
That was a write-off.
A write-off.
Yeah, that car's a write-off, and his balls were nearly a write-off too. He was getting married the next week.
Yeah.
So not a good time to have a crown jewel injury, is it, really?
It's funny because I interviewed him after when he came back to the pits, and he's trying really hard to maintain his composure over camera, but you could tell he was suffering.
Yeah. So that's why he was suffering. That's the bit that was suffering, or bits that were suffering. Yeah.
But I think it was so sad that Super Touring in this country never really took off, or that race in particular.
It was never going to. It was never going to, because and history is wonderful. And at the time, you would how many people going, "It's the future, it's the future," but it was always going to rely on the cars feeding down from overseas. So if it ever had a drama overseas, it was cooked here, and that's what happened. Because the budgets in Britain went through the roof, and they went, we can't sustain this, and then the manufacturers all start pulling out, so the flow-on effect happens. But if we didn't have V8s, and it was the touring car category, it would have been fine. But nowhere else in the world had, except, DTM came back after the sort of Super Touring in Germany died off. Yep. So we went back to this native, what works in your market touring cars, which history always shows that tends to be where things end up. Even when we all try to do the kumbaya world thing, everyone let's have the same. It just doesn't get there. So the Super Touring, and Bathurst was always I think I wrote this in a book I wrote earlier in the year, the fans voted with their exactly. Like, they had the choice. They had 2 races that had same track, same distance, 2 options. What are you going to go to? And people went to the VRs. Not to say those 2-litre races weren't good races. They were really good. Particularly 98, as you said. Like, that was an awesome race. Sadly, it didn't have the popularist view of it being Bathurst, so it's sort of forgotten by most general people, not by us tragics, but but it was like, if you think about it, the shelf life of that category was 94 when TOCA Australia was created, and they pulled the pin on it at the end of the 0001 season, so partway through 01 before the 01-02 summer season. It's not a very long period of life, like 7-8 years. But it was always going to rely on, like TOCA bought cars. They as soon as TCR started doing that when they started here, it was doomed to do the same thing, that if it couldn't wipe its own nose, ARG did the same thing. They bought their Subarus, they brought those Astras, they brought cars, they placed them with people to run, but they owned the cars, they brought them into the country. And that happened with TOCA too. Like, they paid for cars to come in and, put them with teams and stuff like that. So any category that has to do that, if it starts like that, it's never going to get to the point. It's a shame, because those cars were cool and they were different. Like, you had front-wheel drive, four-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive. You had 5-cylinder Volvos, you saw Fitzgerald, by the way, V6 Mondeos, 4-cylinder, pretty much everything else. But you had variety. So you had stuff that sounded different, looked different strengths and weaknesses. It's a cool era to look back on, but we're never going to get something like that ever again. So I think that's probably why it's so revered and celebrated for what it was.
Revisit the 99 title between Paul Morrison and Jim Richards, because that's a cracker. And if it wasn't for that, again, JR running over something on track, ruining the summer.
Would have won the championship if it wasn't for that. Have you heard this story? Has he said this to you a few
He hasn't said this to me before.
I had a feeling that this might have been one where you roll your eyes and you go, oh, here he goes again.
He does it every
the time that Jim would have won. I think he and Morris were fighting at Oran Park over the dog leg, wasn't he? And he got squeezed over a curb and it damaged the sump or something, and it couldn't start the next race. And those points were kind of the difference between not winning and winning. So that was the time. That was good. Speaking of content, what's the process that you go through to say, or are you thinking of in terms of your books and the like? Like, is it getting out there and speaking to people, or is it, what I should do a book like this and bang? What do I think is going to sell enough that I won't have to put too much of my own money or part of my house into it to pay for it if it stuffs up? Kind of, it's that without being that. Probably got a pretty good feel now on what the market wants, what's the right price point, what's the right content, what's the right timing, does it pull on heartstrings, is there an anniversary, is there something going on out there in the world that makes this suddenly more relevant than it was last year or 2 years ago or whatever. So all that stuff comes into account. Luckily, I've over time invested in photo libraries. So we are pretty self-sufficient for anything we would need to make a book out of, pretty much, bar the odd little bit here or there that we can call in from other places. But so that drives a bit of it. How many, can we sell enough to justify the time and effort and the expense? Like, some of these books we make, that's $100,000 investment. Like, by the time you print it, by the time you put a cost next to the blokes that work for me to write it, graphic design, some extra photos, some proofreading, some a little fun for things that we hadn't thought of along the way that need money to solve. You're going to tear up $100,000, and that's before you've sold one. So that's why pre-ordering is handy, to get a bit of a guide on. All right, well, if we pre-ordered this many, okay, well, we probably won't print quite as many as we thought we might, because you don't want to get stuck with lots and lots of stock that they take up room, cost you money to have things in storage and space. So you've but we've got now a bunch of stuff we've done that we can use as, all right, well, that one sold that many and that one was that much, and you sort of got a bit of a guide on what you can sort of base it off. So I think we've got a pretty good reach on that. But I do like to ask people what they like, and quite often you get some really, really left field stuff that you go, wow, we'd be lucky to sell 20 of that. If they were all $5,000 $5,000 each, maybe, but it's a very expensive book. So it's the mix between price point, price point for me to create, and what people will pay to buy it. Do we have the content? How fast will it take to do that? Yes, there's a lot of elements that come into play, and yeah, you can't afford to misfire on too many of these, because when you talk about that sort of dollar number being the investment, and that's me, like that's not, I don't have a private backer or there's not someone in the shadows that's just channeling money into the joint. I wish. If you know one, let me know.
We'll help that out as well.
Yeah. If it goes wrong, it's on my head, so I don't want to go wrong. So sometimes you have to make a few calls on things and shortcut a few things or leave some things out that you like. Yeah, the kind of the nice trimmings or the things. Oh, you'd love to have a dust jacket or a nice satin this or a print version of that. But at the end of the day, I think a lot of people don't really care about all that stuff anyway. So meat and potatoes. Is it a good book? It's got lots of photos. It's stuff I haven't seen before. Is it interesting? Can I get it anywhere else? If all those answers are yes or no to what we need, then away we go. But it doesn't help too that the world's obviously in a bit of a tough financial place at the moment, so there's less money around for spending for
luxury items.
Yeah, stuff that's extra. So that's a little challenge for us to contend with now. So maybe we do some more digital stuff that's going to fill those roles for a while until the market returns, or until we get like 1,000 pre-orders for that Volvo touring car book, and then we're good to go.
I'll definitely order one. Can I have your autograph?
I don't want to devalue it.
It's already devalued enough, like being a Volvo book.
A couple of questions. Is there out of all the books and publications you've done, is there one that stands out and says, I love that one, that's my favourite one?
No. Sounds weird. I have when the new book turns up at work, whenever it's finally arrived or we get a sample copy or something, I can't look at it, because I think I'll find something I don't like, or that's a mistake that we missed, or something spelt wrong, or there's a wrong photo, oh, that's not the right car, or whatever it is. If I don't see it, then I don't know. I don't know. It takes me a month or two to actually stop and open the latest book, and while other people are pouring over, going, oh wow, it's this and it's that and all that. I guess I've become a bit divorced from it in a way. Like it's hard to explain, but I've sort of lived it. Like it was however many months of creating it. It went away because it takes 3 months for stuff to get printed offshore and then get shipped out here. 2.5 if it's quick. So you've sort of moved on to the next thing. So then it's sort of lobbing, and it's new to everyone else, but it's not to us or me. So you're sort of going, oh yeah, I've moved on to the next thing, and it's like you're dragging me back to something that I've sort of left behind, not because I don't like it, just I'm on to the next thing now. So it takes me a little while to get. But I always like to think that there's always something wrong in every book. Whether it's actually something that's actually wrong, or something that I go, nah, I'm not happy with that. Like I deem it wrong, you guys might not spot it and go, oh, it's a great book, And if I point it out, you go, who gives a shit? Like who knows? Everyone's got a different level of detail, but I'd like to think that the best one's yet to come. Because if you kind of go, oh, I've already done the best book I can do,
no one's going to buy the next one.
That's pretty hard to get excited about doing the next one, isn't it? So, yeah, let's keep on naming it a better one. Yeah. Maybe a Volvo touring car book. That could be. That might be me done. If we do that one, we might be out after that.
I'm even thinking of what the cover would look like. It'd be like, how the team had the splash of blue and grey or something, have like Volvo in Australia or something.
I don't think he's thinking what this is like. I think he's already got a design somewhere tucked away that he's going to wheel out next week and go, here's one I prepared
He's
earlier.
bringing it in for you tomorrow.
Yeah, there'll be a poster on the wall at the media centre before I know it.
You'll laugh at this. My love of the S40 is that much that on my go-kart that I race, I've actually
number 40?
No.
Oh, well, you can't love it that much.
No.
Oh,
so
okay.
on the fuel tank, I actually bought period correct S40 badges, and I've actually arrow-dyed it onto the side of my fuel tanks on either side, so it's got S40 on both sides.
I can confirm this.
This is true?
Yeah, this is a true story.
Jeepers.
Found the $98.99 S40 badges and put on the fuel tanks that stays in there. So, yeah.
Yep. You thought
That's all I've got. Yeah.
I suppose for us being budding young podcasters that are sort of breaking into this sort of thing, I mean, what are the lessons that you've learnt? What advice can you impart? Tell us what to do, not to do.
Is this the one that comes with the invoice or not with the invoice? Is this
Here's a bottle of water for your troubles.
That's nice. It's more than I've ever been offered. I'll take that. Is there advice? I think we've been in touch previously. I reckon you've got to find a niche. You've got to find something that no one else is doing, or do it in a way that no one else is doing. If you're just doing the same as everybody else, there's other people who've started before you. You'll never catch them if you go at the same speed, drive the same car. It's the same sort of thing. So, funnily enough, I didn't start doing a podcast because I kind of thought I'd like to, but I only did it because I had a sponsor approach me who said, "Hey, could you do?" And I said, "Yes, we could do," and it's all started from there. But it's actually become, the bit that I've forgotten is how powerful it's probably the most powerful medium that you can have, because people, it's not like, you watch TV, you could have an ad for whatever product on telly, but unless you're a hardcore, if a lawnmower ad popped up, unless you're a hardcore lawnmower enthusiast, do you care? Just tune out. But in a podcast, you'll listen to it because you're listening. You're not hearing. You're engaged to it. So it blows me away that when people come up to me and go, "Oh, that thing you said about Thomas Mesereau back in this day," because Shitbox gets a bit of a run. But people repeat things to you and you go, "Yeah, so I don't remember that because it's 3 years ago," or whatever it is. So you forget how powerful and connected people are. So you actually don't need to have a massive audience to make a big impact, really. So find a niche, like hone in on something that you're really passionate about, but that you word it up on, because then other bits grow onto it. So rather than trying to be everything to everyone, no, just find the thing that you really like. Like, if it's Volvo touring cars, just saying, start there, because you'll always find angles, you'll always find more links and more. You go down a rabbit hole and who knows where you end up. So you might aerodynamic an S40 badge to your go-kart, oh no, actually he's already done that. So
he might change his race number to 40.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was actually a bit shocked by that. I'm actually getting my helmet painted as a famous driver in the off season, but I'm not going to reveal who that is.
Robbie Francevic?
No, not Volvo related.
Where's your commitment level?
His dad's actually doing the helmet. It's under.
Who is it?
I'm not sure. My dad won't tell me. He's not telling me. So
it is a top secret.
When does this get revealed?
Probably January next year.
Okay, so don't reveal it on the podcast because you can't see it. You can't see it.
It'll be on the Facebook page.
Yeah,
definitely Facebook page.
But that's good. Engaging preview tease content. There you go. You've got to listen to the podcast to hear what it is, and then you can tell them where to go to see it.
Exactly.
Yeah, sleuth and negative camber combined.
There you go. Negative sleuth. That's the thing. Negative sleuth. Negative sleuth. Probably doesn't really have a good brand feel to it, does it really? Let's not do that. Let's go with V8 camber. That sounds a bit better. Yeah, that's better.
Speaking of V8 camber, obviously this weekend, season final, Adelaide can throw up all sorts of anarchy.
Is that after the race or during the race?
Both. Yeah. What's your tip? Who's your tip?
Oh, I don't tip because you can't tip. I think who's the right guy to win the championship is Brody Kostecki, without doubt. If Shane was to win, can't begrudge him. He's got it's most points over the year, not most points over all the races by the last one or two. But the way Brody's conducted himself, the way he's driven, the way he's accumulated on the days when he doesn't have the best car, I think it's good for the game to have another fresh face, have a team that hasn't won it before, sets up a great storyline for Will leaving to go to Triple Eight next year. If Shane's to win the championship, he leaves. Yeah. So the carryover champion's not there on sale of the century to knock off. Like, remember those days? Like if you went through the week, you won the showcase and they kicked you out.
Yeah.
Like, no, you need someone to stay on and get beaten. Like, So, what's the best news for the game? I think it's that Brody wins. Yes, he's in the box seat. but a bit of 2017 vibes. You know, after Saturday in Newcastle, those Penske blokes on that podium looked like a team that thought they'd won the championship at that stage. And I remember thinking that. I think I said in our podcast last week. And look what happened. Like, it's not done until it's done. So, you know, street track, potential weather. Remember, too, you've got two... what's the Top Gun theme I'm thinking of? There's some bogies flying around. Brown and Feeney. So they can be played into the mix here. Probably a bit... Well, I was a bit surprised on the Gold Coast. They didn't really... Either of them end up in a spot where that happened. They were both kind of Pinot-ware. But I don't reckon that happens this weekend. Like, I reckon they come into the game a little bit more here. So how far are those two teams willing to play those cards of where the lines of sportsmanship are around? I get the vibe it'll be all right, but yeah, it's not done. Don't pencil anything in here.
I don't think you could even ask for two drivers who want to get their elbows out more as well to find out in the championship in a place like Adelaide.
Yeah, and the thing that's probably, there's really been a few times this year where they have raced one another on the track. Perth was a
great example.
That probably counted for about 4 of them, but there was so much value out of one fight between them. So we haven't really had head-to-head very often, whereas we sort of had, you know, Rick Kelly, Craig Lowndes, we've had McLaughlin and whoever he's fighting, Van Gisbergen or whatever it was, but we haven't really had much hand-to-hand combat with them. So I hope we get a bit of that this weekend, because then that starts a bit of, well, I think Brody presses on with it. I don't think he rolls out of it.
No, it's not his vibe.
No. He's not afraid to take it up to Shane. Some blokes clearly are, but you've got to have a car that can take it up to him. You might be willing, but your car's not. So don't predict anything. Don't go putting anything on anything. Unless you've got an inside tip. But I don't know how you can guarantee anything around this place.
No, absolutely not. I mean, I did a little brief blog on our Facebook page this morning and just sort of said that Shane's got to be the aggressor. Like, he's just got to get on the front foot if he's fair dinkum about winning the title this year. You know, given all that he's been quite vocal about his dislike of the category this year. So I kind of think with the championship on the line that maybe he'll be able to just lay it all on there and actually go for the win Saturday to take it into Sunday.
Yes, but both of them are the same. Yeah. Try to win. If you're Brody, don't change the process. Play the game that got you to this point. If you're Shane, keep playing the game trying to win. Because if you win the car race and the other bloke doesn't and has a bad one, bonus. You can only control the bit you can control. So I don't think it really changes how they go, particularly Shane. He's just got to go. It's real simple. And well, you look at last year Adelaide, he actually had a poor Adelaide. You go, yeah, but was it because he didn't need to have a good Adelaide? Because it was all done. So he's got kind of nothing to lose here, so send it. I reckon he just goes for it.
Yeah. Mate, thank you so much for being part of the show.
Is this the V8 Canberra edition?
Yes.
It is, absolutely.
It's better than the negative sleuth.
It's going to be its own episode, this one.
Thanks for the inspiration, buddy. And hopefully we can have you on the show as many times in the future as well. It'd be great to have you on, but keep inspiring us, keep inspiring me, and please make that Volvo book.
I've got 2 sales. I'll spend the rest of my time here at the Adelaide 500 scouting. And if we get to 200, 100 each in the end, if you have to, you can become a wholesaler for us. Opportunity to make money. Might be a thing.
Thanks, Noons, mate. And we'll see you in the press box, no doubt, over the weekend. But pleasure to have you on the show.
No worries. Sounds good.
You've reached the checkered flag of another episode of Negative Camber the Motorsport Show, proudly brought to you by ProKarts Race Centre. A huge thank you to you, our incredible listeners. Your support and passion for motorsports fuels our enthusiasm to bring you the latest results, analysis, and interviews from the racing world. Keep that FOMO at bay by subscribing to Negative Camber on your favourite podcast platform. We'd also love it if you could leave us a review and share the show with your fellow racing enthusiasts. Your feedback and support mean the world to us. Remember, Negative Camber is more than just a podcast. We're a community of dedicated fans who live and breathe motorsports. Follow us on socials join us on our website, negativecamber.co, and be sure to subscribe to the Negative Camber Club for access to exclusive content, episode previews, and special deals from our amazing partners. Until next time, stay fueled with passion, embrace the negative camber, and keep chasing those podium finishes.
Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to AuscastNetwork.com for details.